Greetings ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mangs, and it is time for another Fire Emblem Fates character spotlights. I do not think I have ever seen so many requests in the comment section for one character, but it is blatantly obvious who you guys want to see me cover next. Well, evil has met its fucking match, and it is time to take a look at the superhero of Fire Emblem, Arthur.
I feel like the luckiest man alive.
Arthur is a self-proclaimed hero of justice. He grew up as a commoner in a poor Norian family. His parents taught him at a very early age that justice was about acting on what his heart told him to do, and this apparently stuck with him cause he grew up to become pretty goddamn self-righteous. When Arthur was very young, he ran into Ashura in the streets of Nor, who was also a child at the time, and found her alone crying. Ashura told Arthur that she was being constantly bullied by King Garon's subordinates in the castle, and that she would run away from home every time it got too unbearable. Shortly after, the castle guards came looking for her, and in order to protect her from being punished, Arthur stood up and claimed he was the one who had kidnapped her. For this, he was whipped in the streets in front of Ashura, but Arthur rejoiced in knowing that his actions had protected someone else, and this inspired him to keep risking his own life to help others in need. Arthur would continue his quest to protect the innocent, uphold justice, and dish out punishment to evildoers, and eventually he would rise to become a hero of Nor, and this reputation would grant him a job as the retainer of Elise, Princess of Nor. Arthur is a large, muscular man standing taller and more bulky than most other members of Corin's army. He dresses himself in a brightly colored, tight-fitting spandex outfit of red and blue colors, reminiscent of a superhero suits, with a white cloak and metal shoulder pads. He also wears high boots and a belt with a golden buckle. His hair is blonde and he is constantly seen with a smiling grin on his face. There is not much to say about Arthur's personality. He is one of the more one-sided characters in Fates. He has a strong sense of justice, and that is pretty much his gimmick. He never strays away from his moral values and takes himself and his duty very seriously. One of Arthur's trademark traits is his awful luck, though I'm unsure if this can be called a personality trait. It's more of a thing that follows him around. Despite wishing to do good, Arthur gets into a lot of trouble and causes a lot of accidents to happen due to events outside of his control constantly going to shits. Maybe this shitty luck is the universe's way of telling Arthur he is a self-righteous prick? Who knows? Arthur does not come across as the most intelligent guy around, and can also be viewed as pretty naive at times. Though he is a self-styled superhero, he isn't without his flaws, as can be seen in his relationship with his son Percy, whom he neglects in favor of helping everyone else. He does admit this eventually, feeling sorry for putting his duty as a hero to the people above being a father to his own son, and promises to spend more time with Percy as a result. Arthur's birthday is on January the 24th, and he is apparently the most flashy person when falling down out of everyone in Corin's army.
It is a great honor to spend quality time with a fellow friend of justice. We should form our own league.
Arthur is an axe fighter that joins in Chapter 7 in Conquest and Chapter 14 in Revelations. He has some absolutely stellar growths, with his hit points, strength, skill, speed, and defense being some of the highest in the entire game. However, they come at a cost. Arthur's gimmick is that he is incredibly unlucky, and this is reflected in his characteristics with a base luck of 1 and a luck growth of 10%. Needless to say, without the assistance of goddess icons, his luck will not go anywhere on its own, and it is not uncommon to see his luck remain in the single digits even at max level. Before we talk about how much of a detriment this is, we have to talk about the luck stat itself and what exactly it does. Each point of luck in Fates grants 1% hits, 1% avoid, and 0.5% critical avoid. This means that point by point, luck is easily the weakest stat in the game, and this is reflected in the fact that goddess icons and luck tonics provides 4 points of luck as opposed to the other stat boosters and tonics providing 2. The big question is, what does having almost non-existent luck mean for Arthur's performance? Well, it means first and foremost that he is always in constant danger of low percentage criticals either killing him or leaving him at very low health, and since luck also boosts accuracy, this can in combination with the shaky hit rate of Axis make him very difficult to use, as his hit rates will float around in the low 70 percentiles quite often. He will also struggle to dodge attacks due to having low avoidance, and this means that his raw defense will be his primary shield against his enemies. For these reasons, many players find Arthur to be an extremely difficult character to use, and therefore bench him pretty fast. Arthur's gimmick is further amplified by his personal skill, Misfortunate, which passively reduces the critical avoid of all enemies within 2 squares by 15, but it also has a downside, in that it also reduces his own critical avoid by 5. Now, this doesn't mean that all enemies within 2 spaces of Arthur has a 50% increased chance of getting critically hit, because critical avoid can't go below 0, so unless you encounter enemies with a base luck of 30, Arthur's personal skill won't be at its most effective. The same goes for his own critical avoid. Misfortunate basically means that Arthur will be stuck at 0 critical avoid until he gets 10 or more luck. For this reason, many consider giving goddess icons to Arthur a complete waste, since he needs at least 3 of them before they even start protecting him against critical hits. Despite its obvious drawbacks, Misfortunate is actually a pretty decent personal skill in that it does more than you might notice at first glance. Passively depriving your enemies of their critical avoid will make you see a lot of crits going off not only from Arthur himself, but from all your other characters surrounding him, particularly if they are wielding killer weapons. Misfortunate is also one of those personal skills that are really difficult to appreciate because you won't really notice its good sides, but you will absolutely notice its bad ones when Arthur takes a 2% crit in the face and dies at the end of a map. It is important to remember that you can actually unequip non-personal skills. Usually this is only done to make room for better ones, once you obtain more than 6, but sometimes it can have its uses before that as well. Once Arthur reaches level 10, he will gain the Gamble skill, which increases his crit chance by 10%, but also lowers his hit chance by the same amount. It is absolutely recommended that you remove this skill as soon as you get it, as 10% hit in the early game is pretty detrimental and not worth the extra crit chance. You should probably wait with equipping this skill at least until Arthur promotes. If you are hell-bent on using Arthur, I recommend feeding him every single goddess icon you come across, as well as giving him luck tonics at the start of every mission. It will really make him a lot easier to use, since luck is important for more than just critical avoid. Another great way to make Arthur more viable in the early game is to give him a bronze axe as soon as he shows up. The bronze axe has a fantastic hit rate of 80%, and it really makes it easier for Arthur to land those crucial hits that the iron axe just is not dependable enough for. Arthur can promote to either a hero or a berserker. Hero is what most people go for, as it is sort of the epitome of his character and personality, but I actually tend to favor berserker a lot more, as they are on absolute steroids in Fates. While Hero gives Arthur access to swords, berserkers have an innate 20% crit chance in Fates, and this combined with Gamble, a forged great club, and Arthur's personal skill can make his crit chance easily exceed his hit chance, and making almost every single hit he lands a one-shot, which is absolutely hilarious to watch. Using a Heart Seal, Arthur can be reclassed to a Cavalier, a solid option if you don't like fighters, and honestly I won't blame you there. Giving Arthur a horse and access to more accurate weapons will absolutely make him easier to use, and while I normally give newer players the advice to avoid reclassing on their first playthrough, I will actually go ahead and say that this will probably make Arthur easier to use, so definitely spend your first Heart Seal on him if you want. You can never get enough Cavaliers on your team anyway. Once Arthur obtains an S-rank support with any female character, he becomes the father of Percy, a Wyvern Rider. Percy is a physical unit, much like his dad, but strangely enough, Percy does not inherit his father's bad luck, but instead on the contrary, he has one of the best luck roads in the entire game, along with a personal skill that is the polar opposite of Arthur's. What this means is that you won't need to marry Arthur off to a waifu with a high luck stat to offset his weakness, which is quite a blessing. A nice little tip to strengthen Percy's utility is to marry Arthur to Nyx, since sorcerers learn the skill Bowbreaker at level 15. Bowbreaker gives a unit plus 50% hits and avoid when facing an enemy equipped with a bow, and since Percy is a flyer and thus weak to arrows, he will greatly enjoy inheriting this skill, though keep in mind that it will not reduce the damage he takes from arrows, just make him much less likely to get hit by them. At the end of the day, I personally enjoy the crap out of Arthur as a unit, but I would not call him good by any means. He's a very gimmicky unit, and his gimmick can easily get him killed. If you want to use him, you have to invest a lot of resources in the form of goddess icons, because left on his own he can turn out a rather lackluster unit, and the constant fear of getting killed by a stray critical is something that most people just don't want to deal with. Despite his shortcomings, however, Arthur has fantastic survivability, and the sky-high hit points and defense will actually allow him to take some stray critical hits and survive, but he is extremely dependent on getting good level ups in his other stats to make up for his horrible luck growth, and if he fails to evolve properly, he will easily get stuck in a place he will find it very difficult to come back from. Still though, if you don't mind taking a few gambles, Arthur can make your playthrough a lot easier, if not at the very least, more exciting.
This was great! But next time, let's discuss the subtle yet distinct difference between justice and vengeance.
Thank you for watching this character spotlight. If you want to watch more spotlights, you can click the link on the screen to visit my playlists, and there you will find all the previous spotlights I've done. If there is a specific character you'd like to see me cover in a future spotlight, let me know in the comment section below. If you found this particular spotlight entertaining, please give this video a like and a comment, it really helps out the channel a lot, and if you want to be updated whenever I release future videos, you can subscribe. As always, my name has been Manx, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.